commanders can embody this type A sort of behavior. Ambitious, competitive, driven, intrinsically motivated. You do not need to go to a commander person and say, could you move faster? You don't. They're already 10 blocks down the street before you have ever changed the direction. They also can be sufferers of something called list sickness. Do any of you all make a list? One or two people? So this is how commanders roll, if you will. They'll make a list. In fact, I did this morning, so I think I'm about to tell on myself. They make a list. And for commanders, if they have 77 things on the list, they will accomplish 78 because they're competitive. They want to get it done as quickly as possible. They will often procrastinate for the sake of creating more pressure because they work better under pressure. It's kind of funny to watch the syndrome play out in real life. But they'll make their list, and then they'll go do a couple of things that are not on the list. And because they are motivated, write this down, because they are motivated by get it done, they will then come back to the list to write down those 2 or 3 things they did that were not on the list just for the sake of being able to cross them off the list. Is this just me or can anybody else relate? All right, this is list sickness. Now, by the same token, commanders are also the one very often viewed as natural-born leaders. We often find commanders, however, because they're motivated to get it done and because they're task-oriented, are one of the 2 personalities most often promoted into corporate America, is one of the most common dominant personalities for those who are entrepreneurs. If you have a family-owned business, you started your own company years ago. They also, though, are the ones who, under stress, do what? I'm hearing lots of whispers. Just tell me out loud. What do they do when they're under stress?
Stupid things.
Stupid things. All right, by your own admission. What else do they do? What do they do when they're under stress? They get angry. What else, Marty? Overreact could be, but not for long, right? So let's look at this. So they can be dictatorial, controlling, bossy, loud, aggressive. We get all that. Yes, that's part of the commander. That's how they roll. It's also what's written on your snapshot, right? But when they get mad, they get mad loudly. They're extroverted, so it's all out here. So they'll get mad, and Meg, they're just like, right? For like 20 minutes. Remember, they're motivated to get it done. So here's how this works. They get mad, then they're in their head and they say, had argument. Check. Usually, because they're slightly competitive, if they're in a disagreement with somebody, it will also sound something like, one argument. Check. Right? And then they're done. And they'll look at the person with whom they just argued and say, so, you want to go have a beer, Clay? And the other 3 personalities will look at that person as if they've lost their mind. Particularly the relator category, who does not operate that way at all. Are we good? Lots and lots of natural-born leadership traits. They would volunteer for leadership just to move along the agenda. If they're a natural commander, they usually were leading things at the age of 7, 8, or 9. I had a retail store in my front yard when I was 9 years old. I can give you some frame of reference. I sold pencils in the 2nd grade for $1 a piece. You know, I mean, I was leading stuff. How many high-scoring column A people do we have in the room today? How many high-scoring column A people? Excellent. So quite a few. Outstanding. Your highest score out of the 4.
The highest
Help me understand column B. What do we call column B? Organizer. I must change my approach here significantly because the organizer is quite different. The organizer preference is the one that dislikes being labeled the most. So forgive me if I sound as if I'm saying you would be all organizer and nothing else. Let's be clear, you have all 4 inside your head. There is one I believe and have experienced in the last 10 years of working with profiles that you arrived on the planet with that is most dominant, but you do have access to all 4. The relators become gifted at being a chameleon and can develop all four for reasons we'll describe in a moment. The organizers are currently analyzing every word I say to figure out, well, I could fit in this one, or oh, she said all four. Excellent. Let me take that in as additional data. The organizer preference, if one is dominant in this area, focuses on order, details, logic, structure. They are motivated to get it right. You'll often find them in your ARAP department. You'll find them in your bookkeeping department if they're authentic. You'll find them often in roles of engineering or numerically oriented roles. Though I will tell you I've profiled much of the Texas divisions of the FAA, air traffic controllers who were playing organizers on TV, who were actually entertainers under the surface, and they wondered why they were having a morale issue. It's not cool to hide who you are because it creates enormous amounts of stress and exhaustion. But the organizer preference is also not very expressive. As my friends in the UK tell me, they appear when they're expressive to have their elbows glued to the side of their body. And in the UK, they refer to this, for me anyway, as the T-Rex zone. When the organizer is very excited, tickled, beyond exuberant, very enthused about something or other, the expression on their face will typically look a little bit like this. Over the moon. Which causes the other personalities to look at them and say, what's wrong? Which drives them nuts. And when they're under stress, they struggle with things like analysis paralysis and perfectionism, and they get very skeptical and pessimistic of the details. So, of course, they got to go get more details that they might be able to trust, but they don't trust them. So now they're trying to figure out the verification of validity of these details, but no, they need more details. But no, they don't trust the details, so they go back and forth in this endless, infinite loop, which creates the inability to make a decision. How do you think that lands and fits with the commanders who are under stress, who might be leading the organizers going, hello, deadline? For the organizer, a deadline is a suggestion. For the commander, as a deadline, it's an ultimatum. But the organizer's thinking, well, you know, Max, if I get all the data, if I get everything I need, and it turns out to be accurate, then yes, I'll get it completed by that time. If it's not accurate, then no, I'll need a few more days, which causes the commander to for at least 20 minutes. Okay. How many high-scoring column B individuals do we have in the room today? How many high-scoring column B individuals do we have? Ah, very good. Thank you. What you'll also notice is that that question is answered by a number, yes? Yeah. I asked the commanders, how many high-scoring column A people do we have in the room? They raise their hand. I don't care if I saw their hand or not. They're done. I asked the organizer, how many high-scoring organizers, column B individuals? They raised their hand, and every one of them made certain I saw their hand so that I could take an accurate count. Are we clear that this shows up everywhere? Everywhere. You have commanders and organizers on the team of people that you lead, and if you're insisting that they behave just like you, and you're not in either one of those boxes, you're the one creating the poor fit. What do we call column C? Could be. Relator. Column C is relator. These are the most wonderful, loyal, loving, laid-back, kind-hearted, soft-spoken, would give you the shirt off their back, walk around naked kind of people. These are the ones who would pick you up at 2 o'clock in the morning if you had a flat tire or just did something stupid. These are the ones who are your lifelong best friends. They would also prefer to lie to you than tell you the truth if it creates a conflict. I perhaps ought to say that again. The relator preference would prefer to lie to your face than tell you bad news for fear of creating a conflict. Several of the relators are looking at me quietly going, uh-huh. Uh-huh. If you're a commander and you have relator team members, which chances are you do, because what most often happens is we'll promote commander organizers into top levels of management. So you have either authentic commanders and organizers there, or you got people acting like it. You got a lot of folks faking it till they make it, because in this country, men are supposed to be commanders according to all the sociological norms. If you're a relator male and you came into this country, you've heard more than once, boys don't cry. Be a man. Suck it up. And by the time you're 40, 50, or 60, you're going to grab an earring and a Harley and ride off into the sunset. We will never hear from you again. Because they get tired of being in charge if that's not really their MO. But the relator preference can't stand conflict. And if you're a commander and you're coming at them with direct questions and direct information and get this done right now, they are thinking in their head, because they're never going to say it out loud. Relax, would you please? Good grief, you're too intense. You scare me. Which makes them holistically unproductive. The relator, though, when they're under stress, then becomes passive-aggressive. You ask them a direct question, Robert, as a relator, they're not going to answer you directly. They're going to come around the bend, which makes the commanders a little crazy because they're like, what part of black and white yes or no did you not understand were the appropriate options for the answer to that question? And the relator's thinking, but I want to tell you a story. I hear commander bosses, I have several coaching clients that will come to me and say, oh my gosh, I am just going to like wring this person's neck. And quick caveat, commanders see relators as their most difficult people typically because of the such vast differential. But the relators who report to my commander coaching clients, their biggest challenge is getting them to not talk to and engage every single person between their cubicle and the bathroom. It's like, stop talking to every frickin' body. Just go do your job. And yet they won't give detailed enough directions for the relators to have the guidance and direction and reassurance that they need to perform at a high level.